Hello, and you are listening to Film Talk with Jordan Ramirez. I am your host, Jordan Ramirez. I went to the Gasparilla International Film Festival and saw A Great Divide for its Florida premiere, and it is intense in its drama and human experiences, in which I will share my thoughts later in this episode. The film is directed by Jean Shim and starring Jeong, Jae Suh Park, Emerson Min, Miya Cech, MeeWha Alana Lee, Brooke, Markham, Seamus Dever, and West Mulholland. So, first things first, let's start with a synopsis of the film. Once the Lee family is starting to get comfortable moving into this small town, Ellie, played by Miya Cech, ends up staying over at the Lee household for a week from California. The Lee family and Ellie start to experience xenophobia and racism firsthand that makes them feel totally uncomfortable at first, but decide that they have to confront these issues that either could make or break them. The film is overall very powerful in dealing with the topical and relevant theme of xenophobia and racism that needs to be addressed with optimism and hope. As I was watching this film, there is a story told by Harmony about the Great Divide in the United States and how it felt similar to her experiences growing up in Korea that she tells to her grandson Benjamin as he is putting together his essay about his family history to get into school. But there is one simple phrase that stuck out to me that became synonymous with the entire movie. Are you a good snake or a bad one? The use of that phrase is oft repeated at least 2 to 3 times in this picture, that the venom from this snake is a metaphor for the ignorance and hatred of other people that spreads to their self-conscience. The film is loaded with imagery of nature and animals that resonate deeply within the plot. It is also present in the dialogue of this film as well. The good snake and the bad snake example is pretty evident, that not only is it present in Harmony's monologue scene to her grandson, but also in the different types of snakes and rattlers presented by Wyatt Schlang, portrayed in the film by Marshall Allman in the scene between him, Benjamin, and Ellie that occurs in the middle of the film. The one character whose deep resentment towards Asian Americans on the screen is George McNather, played in the film by Jamie McShane, who owns this small town and the money that goes into its wildlife conservation that is part of it. And there is one scene in this film that is so telling about his hatred and bigotry of Asian Americans. After he talks with Ranger Tom Drake, played in the film by Seamus Dever, about the Lee family moving into the community and his deep resentment and hatred of Asians moving into this community with his bigoted language, he leaves the ranger den. Then the camera sits perfectly still. It is a static shot of a plaque that was dedicated to George's mother, who passed away in 1968 due to the influenza in Hong Kong that killed 100,000 Americans since it became global. This scene felt both powerful and also sent a strong message of how history can often repeat itself even to this day. While it stings to hear the bigotry and the racism being shown in a realistic and non-dramatic way, it does reach to your heart of the characters who had experienced prejudice and ignorance firsthand. The scene with Jenna, played in the film by Jae Suh Park, telling her story about wearing a dress because she loved Cinderella, and the ugly racism that she had experienced, felt both powerful and personal, that it did not feel overdramatic or glossy. It felt entirely real and emotional. Another sequence that occurs later in this film is when Isaac, played by Jeong, tells his wife a secret that he kept to himself and never got to tell her about. And it was the story of his work experience at an orange juice factory. This story occurred 5 years before their son was born. And just watching him tell the story about how he wanted to be the head position at this company, at this workplace, and how he ended up being the acting head of the company that ended up not being a permanent head, it felt like you could hear a pin drop in that theater. Just utter silence. I think that his performance could get him going places. And let's not forget the other character in this film, the state of Wyoming. When you watch the scenery of the open land, the animals roaming around like the bison and the moose, it has a resounding beauty that not many people will see in a small town like this. I am hopeful that There are more films that are filmed in the state of Wyoming and other small towns like this that could make the state even more famous, especially in one sequence in which they shot at a real diner called Yankee Doodles that is 100% authentically real in both exterior and interior. When you watch it, that is pure Americana. What I can take from this film is that the xenophobia and racism is a sensitive topic that can be handled either really well and authentic or glossy and inauthentic. After watching it and staying afterward for the Q&A session, I started to learn more about this project that arose during the COVID-19 pandemic and what this film could mean for future generations who could learn about what it means to experience that is something both hurtful and demeaning, but how you can also turn it around and break the stereotypes and myths about what it means to look and be different by sharing your stories and letting others know that even though we may look different on the outside, on the inside we are one and the same, and this film shows it. On that note, I highly recommend this film for anyone who has not seen a powerful drama like this. If you want to support this film, you can use the hashtag #AGreatDivide on Instagram to show your love. The film was part of the Gasparilla International Film Festival, which I watched, and I hope that anyone who has not seen it, they will see it later in theaters soon. You have been listening or watching my film review of A Great Divide on Film Talk with Jordan Ramirez, and until then, I'll see you at the movies.